Welcome to Motley Mimic, and today we're going to help you keep your character alive by giving you the one and only comprehensive guide you will ever need for detecting mimics. So let's get into it, boys. Got a good list here. Again, comprehensive guide, right? Because trust us, we know mimics. It's in our name, right? It's in the name. In the name, right? Motley Mimic, Motley Mimic, Mimic Motley, Motley Mimic. Right, okay, great. Right, you got it. Okay, good. All right, let's get on the list, guys. Just remember, the only guide you'll ever need. All right, the creaking floor you just stepped on, even though it's stone, it might be a mimic. That cup of tea you're about to drink, be careful, because it might be a mimic. You know that house with the windows kind of looks like eyes, and the door in the middle kind of looks like a mouth? It might be a mimic. You know that door, that lock you're about to pick, you know, that 8-year lock pick, it might be a mimic. You know, you may look at that jail cell you're locked up in, and the bars kind of look like teeth instead of just like bars, and the floor kind of feels soggy. Yeah, it might be a mimic. Just remember, we're in the tavern, and the tavern keeper tells you a joke, and you laugh, and the tavern keeper laughs, and then the bar laughs. Yeah, get your axe, because it might be a mimic. You know, while you look in the mirror and you find the mirror looking back at you, it might be a mimic. If the wall hands you a torch in the dungeon, careful, because it might be a mimic. You know, you look at that pit trap that kind of looks like eerily like a mouth. Yeah, it might be a mimic. You know, and careful, you know, that curtain you're choosing to hide behind because it kind of moves with you a little too much. Yeah, it might be a mimic. And if you sit down at your desk and you hear it licking its lips, it might be a mimic. When your pillow, you put your head down to sleep at night, while you're on that long adventuring road under the moon and the stars, feels a little squishy and soggy. Yeah, it might be a mimic. You know, when your deck of 3 Dragonante cards starts cheating for you, yeah, it might be a mimic. And careful when you bite that coin to test if it's real gold, because it might bite back, you know, because it might be a mimic. You know, when you get that new mug of ale and it's filled up and you're ready to have that drinking party with your friends and it burps, it might be a mimic. And if you're ever on the road and you come back from hunt some food and you come back to your cart and you find it eating your horse, yeah, careful, it might be a mimic. And you know those drawers we all got one, and your socks disappear in it, right? Just be careful, because it might be a mimic. You know, when your toothbrush asks you to brush its teeth, it might be a mimic. While playing your lute in the tavern, your wonderful lute with wonderful songs, and you find it humming back, it might be a mimic. When you thump the table to the beat of that bard song and the table thumps you back, yeah, careful, because it might be a mimic. If your bookend tries to end you, it might be a mimic. If you wake up with a full beard and you're not really able to grow facial hair, you know, be careful, because it might be a mimic. If you put a silk head on a snowman that comes to life, it might be a mimic. If you toss a coin in a well and the well spits it back out at you, careful, because it might be a mimic. If you have that bag of holding and every once in a while it tries to tug you in, well, that's a bag of devouring. Or a mimic. Just careful. Gotta watch those. If your character salutes your kingdom's flag and it salutes you back, it might be a mimic. If the bard tries to seduce the door to get it open and it works, oh, be careful, guys, because it most certainly might be a mimic. If you return the king's crown to him and you notice saliva coming off onto his brow, it might be a mimic. If you find that new fancy sword in a dungeon and it bares its teeth at you, careful, guys, it might be a mimic. If your dice giggle every time you roll them, it might be a mimic. If you jump over a ravine and it gets wider and wider and wider, it might be a mimic. If you sit in a chair and you begin to sink into it, it might be a mimic. If your selfie camera smiles every time you smile, yeah, it might be a mimic. If you enter the lair that you suspect is a dragon's and you hear, "Who goes there?" it might be a mimic, guys. If you kiss the noble's ring and the ring blushes, oh, careful, guys, because it might be a mimic. If you get a cool wizard hat and it has a strange M on it, like this one, it might be a mimic. If a kid in the street sticks his tongue out at you and your shirt sticks its tongue back, it might be a mimic, guys. If that Pokeball you're using keeps eating Pokemon instead of capturing them, it might be a mimic. If your torch complains that it's hot, it might be a mimic. If the pages of your journal keep getting chewed up, it might be a mimic. If that armor set lunges and attacks your friend, well, that's animated armor. But if the rack that's holding the armor also lunges at you, well, that's an animated object. But if that scarf you bought in the last town you visited, and it begins to choke you while you're trying to, defend yourself from said rack that's attacking you, it might be a mimic. And then finally, guys, if you find that chest in the middle of the dungeon, unguarded, locked, in a locked room, all by itself, nothing around it, no creatures, no monsters, it's probably fine. Go for it, guys. Not a problem. So, anyways, yeah. Anyways, thank you, guys. Appreciate you joining us today. This has been your one and only comprehensive player's guide to detecting mimics. Remember, next time you're in a dungeon, review the list, guys, because you never know. It might be a mimic, But do us a favor, though. Sound us in the comments with your funniest mimic moments, with your party, your group. How did it go? Anyways, appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching Motley Mimic. We'll see you next time. Dude, welcome back.
Yeah.
Oh, new mug?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it. It was just sitting there, unguarded, locked room.